Good morning, friends. I hope everybody's doing all right today. I know that you all heard the news from last night. Governor Kemp closing all the school buildings for the rest of the year. So it looks like this distance learning is the way it's going to be. And I know that we have a few weeks coming up that are going to be a little rough nationwide, honestly. We don't know what that's going to look like yet in terms of his shelter in place order. Maybe it won't be a whole lot different than what we're already doing. I'm guessing it might be a little stricter in terms of, how much people are allowed to go out. I just want you guys to take a breath. Always remember, take a breath. It's going to be all right. I know there can be a lot of fear and anxiety and stress from being cooped up in the house and not knowing what's going to happen, but it's all going to be fine. All right, we're going to get out of this and we will return to some normalcy at some point. Okay, so make sure that you have some sort of schedule to kind of keep your sanity, and make sure that schedule includes downtime, especially outside downtime. Even if all you're doing is taking a walk in your neighborhood or reading a book, in your backyard, or even just playing on your phone in the backyard, just something. I think that, fresh air and sunshine, all that vitamin D can really be good for the soul. So I think that's super important. Your mental health matters. And that can be one of the really difficult things about situations like this. In terms of academics, we're all just going to keep doing what we've been doing. Okay, I know there's a lot of unanswered questions still, like about grades. Well, Cobb County is still figuring out what they want that to look like in Synergy. So in the meantime, your teachers are keeping track of everything. All right, so I'm keeping track of your participation and the grades that you're making on assignments, but I'm also just keeping track of your progress. And I don't know how that's going to translate later on. As soon as a decision's made, we'll probably all find out at the same time. Honestly, it doesn't matter. Okay, we're going to keep doing what we need to do for this class, because you guys are going back to school eventually, and a lot of you guys are going to be taking those AP classes next year, AP Lang next year. So you need that continued practice, reading literature, writing as much as possible. So I'm just going to keep throwing it out there at you, okay? We're just not going to quit. You guys are all smart, highly capable young people. All right, so I don't worry a whole lot about you guys. I worry about myself more than you guys, because you know me well enough to know technology is not always my friend. But I feel like I'm doing okay. I know I'm not doing as much as some of your other teachers in terms of fancy technology, but I don't know. We're getting it. We're getting through it. I guess I'm a little bit lucky because the content area is a little easier to handle with distance learning. So anyway, just know that I'm here for you. If you have problems, or if you just need to vent to somebody, here I am. Shoot me an email. If you want to have a little Zoom chat or something, let me know. Okay. I want to still be a support system for you guys. I miss those interactions that we had. I love those conversations right there at the beginning of the class when we're all getting settled in and we're just talking about random stuff. That's actually some of my favorite parts of the day. And 22 years of teaching like that, to shift to something like this is a little harsh in terms of my reality. So I'm adjusting too. But I'm going to stay positive, and I think that you should stay positive. We've got this. All right. And the rest of this week is going to be super easy, just kind of like what we've been doing. And then you have nothing next week. I'm going to still be working on, getting through some of the assignments that you've already turned in, like those massive research papers. And I'm also going to be planning for what the rest of the school year is going to look like, so that when you guys get back, we'll have some sort of plan in place. Okay? All right. So let's just get at it. I've got two more poets to share with you guys this week. Today's poet is a guy by the name of William Blake. And I had a hard time choosing the poem that I wanted you guys to read from Blake. Let me give you a little bit of background to help you understand why. So Blake was a little bit like the guy Shelley from yesterday, in that they were both very critical of the British government. They are very outspoken in their criticism. And for Blake, he was particularly concerned with a lot of the social issues in England of that time period. Remember, it's the Industrial Revolution in England, so the landscape is changing with all the manufacturing in the factories. This is when we have all the child labor issues coming up, lots of people living in poverty as we move from rural society into the urban society, and London is packed, and it's rough. And a lot of people were living in dire straits. And people like Blake didn't think the government was doing enough to help its citizens to succeed and even to survive. And so you can see that quite a bit in the poetry that he writes. Sometimes Blake would be so outspoken in his criticism that he got himself in trouble. Like, he was actually arrested for sedition at one point in his life. So one of the things he's famous for is he wrote these two novels of poems, volumes, I should have said, of poems. One of them was called Songs of Innocence, and the other's called Songs of Experience. And if you were to read the poems side by side, really pair them, you see some interesting contrasts. Here's an example. So in Songs of Innocence, he writes this poem called The Chimney Sweeper. And it's all about this young boy who goes up on the rooftops of London every single morning, and he's cleaning the chimneys, and it's full of imagery about the peacefulness of being up there and the visions of seeing London from such an interesting perspective. It is a much more optimistic view of the world from the chimney sweeper's eyes. But then you go to his other volume of poetry, and you see another poem. This is from Songs of Experience, and that poem is titled The Chimney Sweeper, just like the other. But this time, the little boy, the chimney sweeper, he goes up to the rooftops of London every morning because he has to. His mother has died. He has to support his family. Now he's forced into this horrible work that eventually is going to end up killing him with all of the soot and stuff in his lungs. I mean, it's dark. And that's what both volumes of poetry do. Songs of Innocence paints kind of a more optimistic view of the world and a love of nature and so forth. And Songs of Experience is dark and paints a very harsh picture of the reality of human existence. So that's pretty interesting. He writes two more in the Songs of Innocence. He writes a poem about a lamb, and it's all about a God who's quite kind and benevolent and cares for his people. And then in Songs of Experience, he writes a poem called The Tiger. And it's about a God who can create something so ferocious and so evil. And the question that hangs between them is, how can it be the same God? It's really interesting the way Blake's mind works. How can the same God that is so kind and benevolent like the lamb create something so dark and evil like the tiger? How are they one and the same? How do we rationalize that in our minds? Maybe we're feeling a little bit of that in today's world, questioning a lot of our beliefs and our faith. Maybe a lot of you guys are relying on your beliefs and your faith to really, get you through and keep you strong through all of this. So I think that Blake would connect to our experiences in the modern world today. In the end, the poem that I chose happens to be my favorite from this guy. Actually, this is probably one of my favorites in all of the Romantic movement. This is a poem about high emotion. Okay, and high emotion doesn't always mean passionate love like the guy we're going to read tomorrow. There's a lot of emotions. Anxiety and fear and depression, those are all emotions. Sadness and grief, those are all emotions. Anger, that's a powerful emotion. So today's poem is about anger. And it's about forgiveness. And it's about the power, I guess, of those two things. I don't want to give too much away, Today's poem is called A Poison Tree. Let me find it for you. Here it is. A Poison Tree. Again, super short. I feel like they're pretty much all this way. Tomorrow's is probably the longest one that we will read all week. I love the powerful imagery that the Romantic poets use, and this one is full of it. It's also quite full of metaphor and symbolism. So what do you have to do to understand it? Well, you need to identify something. Like, figure out what something symbolizes. Figure out one of the metaphors, or identify the central message. Okay? And if you can identify that, then the rest of the comprehension often kind of falls in place. All right? So I'm going to read it to you guys one time through, and then you will have a similar assignment like what you guys have been doing to annotate and look at diction and look at imagery and figurative language before you hop on quizzes and do that part. All right, so let's take a first look at A Poison Tree by William Blake. Check this out. I was angry with my friend. I told my wrath did end. I was angry with my foe. I told it not. My wrath did grow. And I watered it in fears, night and morning with my tears. And I sunned it with smiles and with soft, deceitful wiles. And it grew both day and night, till it bore an apple bright. And my foe beheld it shine, and he knew that it was mine. And into my garden stole when the night had veiled the pole. In the morning glad I see my foe outstretched beneath the tree. You see the darkness in that poem? That's typical of William Blake. This is the kind of poem that you would have seen in Songs of Experience. Okay? It's about that anger that sometimes we hold inside and the effects that it can often have. All right, I won't say too much because I want you guys to discover some of it for yourselves. Okay, so again, do a couple of extra readings, really look at that imagery and that diction, identify that central theme, and then hop on and do your quizzes. Okay. I forgot to look to see who our winner was yesterday. The last time I checked, gosh, I don't even remember who it was. I'll post it later on because I don't actually have it pulled up. The last time I checked, it was Maddie Hill. That's who it was, Maddie. And she had like 16,000 points or something. So good job, Maddie. Well done. And have some fun with it. We'll have one more tomorrow, and then we'll be moving into spring break. Yay. All right, you guys have a happy Thursday. Don't forget your outside time, okay, to take a break and hit that reset button. All right, stay strong, stay positive. You got this.